The sun was bleeding orange and low over the Wyoming plains when Wyatt Callahan finally slid the ring on Gracie Harper's finger. The little white chapel outside Cody had maybe 20 people in it, mostly ranch hands in their best shirts and boots. A few cousins who'd driven up from Colorado, and Gracie's mama wiping tears with a lace handkerchief older than the state itself. Wyatt's hands shook just enough that the gold band caught on her knuckle before it settled. The preacher grinned. "You may kiss your bride, son." Wyatt lifted the veil, looked into those green eyes he'd known since they were both knee-high to a grasshopper, and felt the world tilt. He kissed her slow, like he was afraid the moment would spook and bolt. When they pulled apart, Gracie's lips brushed his ear and she whispered, so soft only he could hear, "I've loved you since we were children." His heart slammed once hard, like a bronc hitting the end of a rope. He couldn't speak, just pressed his forehead to hers while everybody clapped and whistled, and the organ played something cheerful he didn't even hear. They'd been circling this moment for 26 years. Gracie was born on the Harper place, 10 miles west of the Callahan Ranch. Their mamas were best friends, so the babies shared a playpen at branding time, at church potlucks, at every 4th of July rodeo from here to Cheyenne. By the time they were 5, Wyatt was pulling Gracie up behind him on his pony, her little arms locked around his waist, both of them laughing while the Wyoming wind tried to steal their hats. When they were 8, Gracie dared Wyatt to jump the irrigation ditch on his bike. He did, crashed spectacularly, broke his wrist. She rode with him in the back of his daddy's pickup all the way to the clinic, holding his good hand and promising she'd never dare him again. She lied. She dared him plenty more over the years. He never turned one down. High school came. Wyatt grew into shoulders wide enough to fill a doorway, and a quiet way of watching the world that made girls sigh. Gracie turned long-legged and fierce, hair the color of wheat ready for cutting, mouth always ready with a comeback. Everybody assumed they'd end up together, the way you assume the sun will rise over the Beartooth Mountains every morning. But young love is stupid. Senior year, Wyatt got it into his head that Gracie deserved bigger things than 6,000 acres of sagebrush and cattle. She had colleges sending letters, art scholarships, a future that didn't smell like hay and cow shit. So the night she told him she loved him, standing by the corral after the homecoming dance, moonlight silver on her dress, he kissed her once, hard, then said, "You should go, Gracie. See the world. I'll still be here turning dirt when you get tired of it." She slapped him so hard his ears rang for a week. Then she left for Savannah, College of Art and Design, the day after graduation, and didn't come home for 4 years. Wyatt joined the Marines. 2 tours in Helmand Province. He learned how to clear a room, how to sleep with his boots on, how to write letters he never sent. He came home quieter, eyes older, carrying shrapnel in his left thigh and a Purple Heart he kept in a drawer. The ranch swallowed him whole. Sunrise chores, long days fixing fence, nights drinking too much whiskey on the porch listening to coyotes. Gracie came back the summer he was 25. Her daddy's cancer had spread, and the Harper place was sliding toward bankruptcy. She walked into the feed store in a city sundress and boots that had never seen manure, and every man in the place forgot how to speak. Wyatt was buying mineral blocks. Their eyes met across the counter. She smiled, small and sad. He nodded like she was any other customer. Then he loaded his truck and drove home with his chest on fire. They didn't speak for another year. The night her daddy died, Wyatt showed up at the Harper, house with a casserole his mother had made and a bottle of Maker's Mark. Gracie opened the door. In pajamas, hair a mess, eyes swollen. She took one look at him and started crying again. He stepped inside, set the food down, and held her while she shook apart. They drank half the bottle on the porch swing, not saying much, just breathing the same cold October air. When the stars came out, she leaned her head on his shoulder like no time had passed. "I hated you for a long time," she whispered. "I know. I hated myself more." He didn't kiss her that night. Just walked her to bed, tucked her in, slept on the couch with his boots still on in case she needed anything. After the funeral, she stayed. Took over the books for both ranches, hers and the Callahans, because numbers didn't lie and cattle did. She turned the Harper place around, sold off the weak stock, leased the north pasture for wind turbines, paid the hospital bills. Wyatt watched from a distance, proud and aching. They fell into an uneasy rhythm. Coffee on his porch some mornings. Her bringing lunch when the hay crew was short-handed, once during a blizzard. The power went out for 3 days, and she ended up at his place because the Harper house was colder. They played cards by lantern light, shared a bed because the fireplace was in the living room and neither wanted to sleep alone. Nothing happened except her curling into his side like she'd always belonged there. In the morning, she made pancakes and left before he woke up. Spring branding. She got thrown from a green horse and cracked 2 ribs. Wyatt carried her to the truck. Drove her to the ER himself. Sat in the waiting room chewing the inside of his cheek until the doctor said she'd be fine. When they released her, he took her home, to his home, put her in his bed, brought her soup, changed the channel whenever the pain meds made her loopy and she started, crying about things she couldn't fix. On the 3rd night, she reached for his hand in the dark. Stay. He did. Slept on top of the covers in his clothes. She woke up with her head on his chest anyway. Summer came hot and dry. Wildfires in the mountains, smoke on the horizon every evening. They were moving cattle to higher pasture when a lightning strike started. A grass fire between the ranches. Everybody, neighbors, volunteer departments, even the inmates from the honor camp, turned out with shovels and wet burlap. Wyatt and Gracie worked back-to-back for 14 hours, faces black with soot, until the fire was out and the stars looked close enough to touch. Later, sitting on the tailgate of his truck sharing a warm beer, she said, "I'm tired of pretending I don't want to come home to you every night." He looked at her for a long time. "You sure? This life, it's hard, Gracie. It'll break your heart some days." "I'm already broken," she said. "Might as well be broken with you." He kissed her then, smoke in their lungs and sweat on their skin, and it felt like the first honest thing either of them had done in years. They didn't rush. Took it slow like gentling a colt. Dates were dinners he cooked, burnt half the time. Slow dances in the kitchen to George Strait. Sunday rides up to the mountain to check the summer range. He learned she still couldn't draw a straight line but could make numbers dance. She learned he still wrote poetry on feed sacks when no one was looking. Terrible rhymes about sunsets and stubborn women. One October evening, frost silver on the grass, Wyatt drove her out to the ring his grandmother had worn. Simple gold, scratched from 70 years of ranch work. "Gracie Harper," he said, voice rough, "I have loved you since we were children. I was just too dumb to know what to do with it. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for lost time," she cried. Nodded before he finished the question. He slid the ring on and it fit like it had waited for her finger all along. Now in the little chapel, with her whisper still ringing in his ears. "I've loved you since we were children." Wyatt kissed her again while their friends and family cheered. Outside, the Wyoming sky stretched wide and forever, snow already dusting the Absarokas. Inside, the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and the organ played Blessed Assurance, while Gracie's mama sobbed happy, tears into her husband's shoulder. At the reception in the VFW hall, somebody spiked the punch. The dance floor filled with cowboy boots and little girls in party dresses. An old man told lies about the time Wyatt rode a bull named Fu Manchu. Gracie and Wyatt had their first dance to Amarillo by morning. Her head on his chest, his hand spanning her back like he was afraid she'd vanish. Later, when the cake was cut and the bouquet thrown, caught by a horrified 14-year-old cousin, they slipped out to his truck. He'd hung his suit jacket on the hook, rolled his sleeves, looked every inch the cowboy she'd loved since before she knew what love was. He drove them home, to their home now, pasture dark under starlight, the porch light burning like a promise. Inside, he carried her over the threshold because his daddy always said a man should, and she laughed into his neck because her ribs still remembered the last time he'd carried her. They didn't make it past the living room the first time. Too many years of wanting, too much almost and not quite. Clothes scattered like shed leaves. Her whisper again, breathless against his skin. "I've loved you since we were children."